Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, honorable guests, our distinguished speakers. And it is my greatest pleasure and honor all to our tonight's roundtable, Serbia on its way to the European Union. Let me first invite the host of the evening, Mr. Franc Bogovič, to the stage to with some opening remarks.
Dober večer vsem zbranim. Dogovorili smo se, da bomo govorili v angleščini, tako da bo tudi naš gost, gospod McAllister, razumel pa tudi sicer že kar precej nekaj mlajših, ki mogoče že ima kakšne težave v teh jezikih, zato dovolite meni, da spregovorim v angleščini. Good evening to everybody. It's a big pleasure for me that we are together here tonight, together with my guests who arrived from different countries and want to speak about progress of Serbia towards European Union. So that it's a pleasure for me and welcome our Minister in Serbian government. Welcome Mr. David McAllister, a member of the European Parliament, a colleague from Germany who is a reporter for Serbia. Welcome Senja Milinković from Office for European Integration. Welcome Milan Petrović. He is the president of Club of Manager in Serbia, so that we will hear also about Serbian economy. And welcome Mr. Franc. He today works in foreign ministry, and all we know him as ex-Serbian ambassador. I'm very Serbian ambassador in Serbia. Excuse me. All know, so my mistake. They solve my problem because of my mistake. Welcome also to all of you who are in this side. So I'm very glad that here with us are ambassadors from Bosnia and especially Ambassador of Serbia. We spoke a few months ago about this event, and we believe that it's possible to do. And today tonight we will speak in Ljubljana about improvement in accession process in Serbia. So that thanks to you, to your help, and it's a pleasure for me that we are together. Welcome, Mr. Pavel Bogovič, the leader of Orthodox Church, Serbian Orthodox Church in Slovenia. And welcome my colleague, Igor Šoltes, Slovenian members in European Parliament. We are both in a group, interparliamentary group, which follow the progress of Serbia on this way, so that I'm very glad that you are here with us. With us is also Clement Žumer, who leads the European Parliament office here in Ljubljana. Welcome to all of you, and I'm sure that we will have a nice evening. Why I decided to organize with my office this event? As I said, we are together with Mr. Šoltes in this group which follow the progress of Serbia in the way to European Union. David McAllister is a reporter of European Parliament, and I'm sure that all of us, as people in Serbia, that Serbia belongs to European Union. European Union is the process for peace in Europe. It started at the end of the Second World War, and now it's 500 million Europeans in European Union. Island on the Western Balkan, in which in 6 countries lives little less than 20 million people, and I'm sure that it's time that this progress continues. We see what happens if the war is in Africa, the war is Middle East, and all we remember very well 90s, and we know what happens if there is no peace or there is a war around you. I'm sure that the Serbia decided on the right way. We follow this progress. We will hear through this round table that they are on the way, and I hope that this event, which we organize tonight is a small stone in mosaic for Serbian integration in European Union. I wish you a nice evening tonight.
And then I would also like to invite to the floor His Excellency, Serbian Ambassador to Slovenia, Mr. Aleksandar Radmanović.
Dobro večer svima, ja ću se obratiti na jeziku koji zovemo jugo-esperanto, zato što se međusobno svi razumemo. Poštovana ministarka, poštovani gospodine McAllister, drugi gosti, kolege ekscelencije i poštovani prijatelji. Mislim da je gospodin Bogovič na samom početku jednom lapsusom, u stvari, kad je mog kolegu Buta nazvao srpskom samom Sloveniji, na primjer, rekao da je to suština slovenačkog odnosa prema Srbima i srpskoj državi. Mi imamo jake dobre odnose i osjećamo se veoma bliski, tako da bliskost spontano zapravo odražava naše odnose. Naravno, Srbija na putu Evropske unije u Sloveniji, nakon sednice dve vlade i današnjih dobrih razgovora koje smo imali sa slovenačkim institucijama, samo nam uliva nadu da će naša regija sa Slovenijom zajedno ići ka putu ka razvoju evropske integracije. Tako da, hvala još jedan puta na svemu i posebno se zahvaljujem gospodinu Bogoviću i njegovim saradnicima na podršci koju imamo od njegove kancelarije, naravno i drugim kolegama slovenačkim parlamentarcima. Hvala puno.
Thank you, Your Excellency. And now, without any further ado, I suggest that we start the debate on this very important topic that, in my opinion, it's only going to gain in relevance in the days, weeks, and months to come. So it was my plan to first introduce our distinguished speakers, but I think that Mr. Bogovič already did that for us all. There are names behind us, so in order to save some time, maybe we can just proceed to the questions. So, Mr. McAllister, let's start with the big picture. Until very recently, there was this very negative atmosphere towards enlargement in the European Union. Everybody, especially Germany, seemed very wary of any new accessions. Even lately we hear from Mr. Juncker the signals next 5 years. So right now at this moment, how honest this EU in opening its doors to new members, especially Serbia? Or is it maybe these promises of membership just a way to keep the country, the region on track, to to keep them on behavior?
Well, I believe enlargement has been a success. 6, 9, 10, 12, 15, 25, 27, 28. Enlargement has been a success until now. Enlargement has brought stability and peace to other parts of the European Union. And I think the enlargement process will continue. And enlargement is a driving force for important reforms, which are beneficial not only for those countries who want to join the European Union, but also for those who are already in the European Union. If you look at the situation in Europe and the enlargement candidates, I would try and differ. The first countries are the countries from the neighborhood, and Angela Merkel pointed out today that neighborhood policy and enlargement policy are two different pair of shoes. Then we have the special problem of Turkey, and then we have countries from the Western Balkans, which Franc Bogovič addressed. And as a German Christian Democrat, as somebody close to Angela Merkel, and as somebody who comes from North Germany, and we tend to be a bit more sober, South Germans call us boring, we're not so emotional, I can clearly say all 6 countries from the Western Balkans have a clear European perspective. And that's why the enlargement process will continue. Now, what did Mr. Juncker say in the European Parliament when he was elected as the Commission President? He said something which is really common sense. He said there won't be new member states to the European Union within this period, from 2014 till 2019. That wasn't really a big surprise, because if you look at Montenegro, Serbia, or others, they won't be ready until 2019. But these countries are on their path towards the European Union, and I think we should help. So it's an honest commitment, and Jadranka Joksimovic, who's dealing with representatives from the other 27 member states, I think she gets the message from it in every capital. All 27 members, all 28 member states are clearly committed that Serbia should become member of the European Union. When? Mainly depends which progress Serbia will make in the next years. But it's no secret, for me as a rapporteur, I believe it's time that the first chapter of the first chapters should be opened in this year. But I won't decide, nor will my colleagues in the European Parliament, but that's something the Council has to decide. But I think we should acknowledge the progress under the government of Alexander Vučić and his foreign minister, Ivica Dačić.
But still, there seems to be a change in the EU policy towards, especially the Western Balkans. And from no enlargement to it's up a little bit. Why is it? Is it because of the security issues, geopolitical issues, adherence, economic interest, all together? What, in your opinion, is the main thing?
Well, the treaties are very clear. A country can join the European Union if it's within Europe, it shares our values, and it fulfills all the criteria. And all the criteria has to be fulfilled in practice. It doesn't help a candidate country, nor does it help the European Union if you turn away from certain problems. We've got to address the issues. We've got to tell the candidate countries what they're doing right and where they still have to. And I tried to present a very balanced report on Serbia in the European Union. We had good negotiations in the Committee for Foreign Affairs, and in the end it was carried by a big majority. So once again, Europe, the European Union is ready to assist, but of course the major steps have to be made by the candidate country, and I think that the Serbian train is definitely on track towards the European Union, And the sooner it arrives at Brussels main station, the better. But that is once again a question of Serbia as a country. One thing I would like to say is Johannes Hahn, the Commissioner for Enlargement and Neighbourhood Policy, he doesn't like to talk so much about negotiations. He prefers to speak about the process. And I think that's a clever move, because negotiations is something governments and politicians are on about. But the process is about Serbia getting involved, not only the politicians, not only the government, but also the opposition, civil society, business, and many more things. And I think that's the right way, the right approach Johannes Hahn has presented.
But was there any, is there more motivation on the side of the EU for enlargement since the beginning of the Ukraine crisis, for example? Or doesn't that affect it at all?
Well, I think the Ukraine crisis has changed the neighborhood policy of the European Union. While we're sitting here in Ljubljana, it's the first day of the summit in Riga, and I think the answer to the new challenges in the neighborhood policy will be we will no longer have a policy one size fits all for the neighborhood countries. We have countries like Moldova, Ukraine, and Georgia, which are interested in closer relations to the European Union, whereas Belarus, which is a special problem, Armenia and Azerbaijan are going another way. But when it comes to the Balkans, of course, it's also got to do with geopolitics, but that's not the main reason. Once again, Serbia is a valuable part of Europe. Serbia is a proud nation, and even though not everyone's so enthusiastic about further enlargement in the country where I come from, in Germany, I always say we have no right to say the European Union is a closed shop. No, we're open, and we're especially open for the countries of the Western Balkans. We actually had it in our party manifesto as German Christian Democrats for the European elections that we say Montenegro, Serbia, Macedonia, Albania, Bosnia-Herzegovina, and Kosovo, all six have a clear European perspective, and Angela Merkel, as the German Chancellor, initiated this new Balkan process as a key element of German foreign policy, because we Germans must understand something. It's in our own interest that we have a stable region in the Balkans, and Serbia plays a very important constructive role. I would also like to underline, it was so important that Alexander Vucic welcomed Mr. Rama in Belgrade. That was such an important historic visit after 68 years, and now the Serbian Prime Minister is going to Tirana. This is exactly what it's all about. We've got to use EU enlargement politics also to foster regional cooperation. And if you look at Macedonia, you can see what happens in a short period of time, how a country is starting to deteriorate. I am personally very concerned about the situation in Macedonia.
Okay. And Mrs. Yuxin, also when observing Serbia's political behavior, sometimes some doubts can be raised. Yes, Mr. Vucic always says, we are going to the EU, we are on the European path, we are staying from it. But at the same time, some you can get an impression that Serbia wants to sit on two chairs. 2 days ago, we heard that Serbia is tired with showing patience. So right now, at this moment, how honest is Serbia if we are asking that the EU in its endeavors to become a full member?
Well, actually, I have to start with, I want to express my really honest gratitude to Mr. Bogovič, because you showed that you are really a friend of Serbia. Thank you very much for organizing this very important conference or roundtable, whatever. And of course, I don't want to avoid your question, but I have to start with comment on something that David said, and I think it's a very good point, actually. You mentioned David Younger's statement about 5 years, no enlargement, etc., etc. You know, somehow it's not in a collision with our goal. because we have, for example, our national plan for adopting a key, NPAA so-called, and we have to finish that till the end of the 2018 for 3 years. So before that, we cannot even imagine to be part of the EU. And of course, we expect that after that, maybe 2 or 3 years, we need to adjust everything, to implement everything, to have ratification from member states, etc., etc. So we don't expect to be a member state before 2020. It's not in a collision. But the problem with that statement was actually the fact that when you say something should not be in our focus for next 5 years, then you are in position to say, okay, but what are we doing? What are we doing? Because they are not interested in what we are doing for next 5 years. That's why I think that it's very good to have such a friend as Slovenian friends, but also as rapporteur as David McAllister, not because he's in favor with Serbia particularly. It's because he's objective and he's trying to say, but come on, those are candidate countries for the very important region of the European Union. We need that. And you had an excellent point. Enlargement politics is one of the best and most successful politics of the EU. And we can measure that by numbers. I mean, when you see exports of the European Union countries in Western Balkan countries, it's a really impressive figure. I'm sure that some of you, being in business, you know that very good. On the other hand, it's important to say that, you know, we don't want to be part of EU because it's something, I don't know, something just because declarative, because of the words. We want to be a member of EU, to be a functional member of EU. That means that we want our society to be modernized, to be more successful. So European Union is for us added value at the end of the process. When we reform our own society, when we become, let's say, or to adjust ourselves regarding the European standards, European values, through all these chapters that we are now negotiating, you know, then membership, possible membership, it will be added value at the end of the process. It will be normal consequence of the whole process. And that's why we in Serbia became not Euro-fanatic, but we became Euro-realist. So we want to be a successful state, modern state, national state. Of course, we know that the European Union and member states, they have learned their lessons from the latest circles of enlargement and some of very, let's say, not so successful examples. And of course that now we understand that they have switched the steps and the agenda of the whole process. That's why we should start comparing some other countries. We have to start with those most difficult chapters, 23, 24, in our case it's a 35, of course we will discuss also that problem. So it's okay, we cannot change that. Maybe if we want to send good messages to our people, we can say maybe it's not so bad to start with the most difficult things. That means that we will be prepared before some other countries, and later we can, you know, go through the process on let's say, more easier way or more successful way. So Serbia is very honest in our, because we are Euro-realistic, as I mentioned, and you also mentioned the 2 chairs. No, it's not the 2 chairs. You know, it's only possibility that we as a candidate country have, but also member state country, they also have opportunity sometimes to protect their economic interests. We are a candidate country. No one will pay us for our gas loan from European Union. And of course, we completely understand that we should be in alignment with common foreign security policy step by step. And that's something that, you know, everybody in Serbia, we know that it's not very popular. But, you know, we have to be very honest, as you mentioned the word honest. First of all, as we mentioned, as we said, sorry, that strategic goal of our foreign policy is membership toward the EU. Of course, we know our responsibilities, but it's good for candidate country to keep some position as far as we can. But You know, it's it's not easy. So certainly we know our responsibilities. We are very open. We are very disciplined. I can tell you that we have introduced very unpopular measures, economic measures that some of member states of EU haven't done, and no one actually made pressure on us to do that from European Union. It was our own decision, and I think that actually shows our commitment and devotion to European Union and to reform process.
Mr. Bogovič, so to be a bit more specific, practical, you have a lot of experience with Slovenian accession, with cohesion, with implementation on micro level, on communal level. In practice, will it pay off to Serbia to actually finish the accession process and to become a full member?
In one sentence, it will pay off. I can say that, as we heard, this process is very important to change society. And it means that you must accept a lot of laws to work with people. What we heard is very important, that people are involved in this process. It cannot be done in 1 year. And all we remember that in Serbia, it's necessary to change a lot of things on this field. On the other hand, I think that people can feel similar as we feel felt in Slovenia. At that time, I was mayor in municipality Krško, and this was really practical work. And it's it's necessary that people on communal level understand this philosophy, that they can prepare their own administrative capacity to use this money. It's very important also later when you are a member state. And sometimes, still in Slovenia, we hear that if somebody in Brussels said you must do this, that somebody in Brussels says, no, you must do this because of your country. And I'm very glad that I followed this process in Serbia. I was in Serbia a few years ago. I think that this is this way, and when people will see that you can build environment infrastructure, roads, you can build construction of villages, cities, broadband on villages, on countryside. These are practical results in which people understand.
Okay, but if I'm more straightforward, I've heard several times, not only in Serbia, throughout the Western Balkans, this unofficial chit-chatting, people saying, oh, let's just take the money, change some laws. They will not let us in anyway. We are not going to get in, so we will not need to, I don't know, pay into the European budget and so on. In reality, what is more profitable for a country, to be a candidate for a longer period of time, or to be a member? As
If we say profitable, it's much more profitable to be a member state than a candidate. I will say a few figures later. Yes, you said all we are here in this cell, including David. I think that we understand the sentences lako ćemo. We can do easily, but inside this European policy, it cannot be a rule. If this is a rule, you are after 10, 20 years Greece, unfortunately. So that I think that it's necessary to go in this direction and to be serious and honest to your people, because this is the most important in these processes. If you say if it's profitable, if we compare figures for Slovenia, and it's easy to compare them from Serbia, when we started to be a member of European Union, we get from structural funds and rural development funds and money for agriculture 6 times more than we got before. It means that in these 7 years, between 2013 and 2013, in this financial perspective, Slovenia paid in European budget little less than 3 billion, but we got back around 6 billion. It means that it's a big amount of money. We can see now the rural development program for Romania, for example, for 7 years is 8 billion. And if you work to financial perspective in such a way, you can, on the base of cohesion money, which give net payers, on the base of the principle of solidarity, the development of country can be closer to European Union average. And I think that European Union should give more money to Serbia, because if we compare the level of development in Serbia today and development of neighbor countries 20 years ago, now the Serbia is in worse situation.
We will actually come back to the numbers and how much.
It's not about numbers. Very short, very brief, really, because I'm a national IPA coordinator also in Serbia, not only a minister for EU integration. So I just want to make maybe it's not good enough. Not good enough reason, to explain. But if you are a candidate country capable to use the pre-accession funds, then you are partly very functional state, because we can, and I can tell you how difficult it is to have all structures, to have public finance management, to have audit institutions, to have single project pipelines for using these funds. And if you have everything, then I think that you are pretty good, to recommend yourself as a member state. Of course, it's not enough. There are a lot of other things, especially rule of law and setting the whole society. But this area is very demanding, and that's why I think that a special part of reforms should be this improvement of public finance management and using funds.
Exactly about that, we are going to talk to more specifically a little bit later on. Now, I would like to ask Ms. Milenkovic, what is the perception in the political circles and people managing the accession process in Serbia, in general public? Do they genuinely believe that all these standards, norms, and demands are actually there to improve the situation in Serbia, to lead to progress, and are not demands against Serbia? Is that already genuinely felt?
What does it mean genuinely felt? It depends on what is the real motivation to enter. And if we look at the motivation of people in Serbia to enter the EU, you will find a very simple elements: living standards, employment, social security. So the issues which I think are common, not only for the Western Balkan candidates and potential candidates, but also all the EU member states. This is what people really want to see, the improvement of their lives through the integration. And now, if we have a situation where more than 60% of the citizens of Serbia support the economic reforms performed by the government, very difficult and normally unpopular reforms, then you actually realize that people are sometimes cleverer than we just take them for granted, and we shouldn't take them for granted, because they do understand that the reforms are there to make their lives better on mid or long-term basis. So I think it's really not possible to divide it like that, genuinely or not genuinely, because of course there are fears, of course there are dilemmas with the people. For instance, in Serbia, one of the greatest fears is that we will lose our national and cultural identity by acceding the EU, that our language will be lost somehow, that our sovereignty will be lost, that we'll have to give that all up. And I have to say, as legitimate as it is, this is the myth that we have to work on breaking, really. But I would definitely not go against the genuine motivation. Be it very personal, be it very even profit-oriented, but this is common for everyone, even in the EU. I mean, when we look, for instance, back to the crisis, the economic crisis, and when you look at the reactions of the EU member states, we could also say that it was very selfish in many cases, in the sense we don't want new entries, we don't want new migrants, we don't want new workers in the EU because they jeopardize our way of life. But as much as we may not like it, it's also legitimate, as much as it is legitimate for our people to say, I want in the EU because my salary will be doubled.
Of course.
So in that sense, I would say it's genuine.
Of course, and all those dilemmas were exactly the same in Slovenia. When Slovenia was a candidate for membership, I know that this losing of identity was such a major question. You know, why should we give a part of our sovereignty up? And I don't know, maybe Mr. Wood, you've been an ambassador to Belgrade. You've had all these conversations. Do you think maybe Slovenia can help in that respect? And are we even in position to clear the air a little bit about those dilemmas, about the identity, sovereignty?
I would say certainly yes, actually. I believe that Slovenia is a good example for Serbia. Not again, actually, Slovenia was the first new member state from the region. So actually, it can be, I hope, in some positive cases, a good example, not only for Serbia, but also for the other countries in the region. But I would like to say that it's clear that it's important to underline and to repeat that what has happened in Slovenia after we joined the European Union. In fact, we haven't lost our own identity. We haven't sold our land. Actually, we kept our traditions, our ways of life. Actually, everything is still here. In some cases, I would say that probably it would be good to change the way of life sometimes a little bit. I think you and what I have in mind. Okay. However, actually, but on the other side, we gained the possibility, for instance, to legally protect some of our traditional products, for instance, for the whole area of the European Union. That's very important as well. Actually, this is today a kind of business opportunity for some part of society, and I believe that we can offer these experiences also to Serbia, to the region, and we are behaving in this way. We are working on this. On the other side, also Mr. Bogovič mentioned that we got very significant financial means to develop our country, regions, rural development. I do remember I was a negotiator with the European Union in the period of the accession negotiations myself, actually, and as a negotiator, I was mainly responsible for some chapters like agriculture, rural development, food safety, etc. And I do remember how skeptical and unhappy farmers were, for instance. But I would say, and I would like to conclude after 10, 15 years, that simply our farmers are probably one of the few winners of enlargement. Actually, of course, I'm not speaking in front of the farmer unions, but on the other side, it's correct to say and to discuss in this way.
But what do you suggest, as a former ambassador, how could we do this? Should people just generally travel more from Serbia to Slovenia, from Slovenia to Serbia, or should we have more discussions on political level, more I don't know, delegations from Serbia to Slovenia? What would be a good approach to this one?
Of course, on one side, we have to support Serbia politically. We shouldn't forget that Serbia is not only slowly, but really turning from a so-called problem to a solution. And Serbia is a case of stability in the region, which is still not very stable. On the other side, Serbia has officially opened the accession negotiations in January 2014, and actually today they haven't opened any chapter of the negotiations yet. Actually, this is a political approach, and here Slovenia is one of very important friends of Serbia, together with many other EU member states, actually we are all supporting Serbia, but however, I think it's, therefore I believe it's extremely important and necessary and needed to open the first chapter or chapters of the negotiations as soon as possible, not by the end of this year, I would say even earlier, as soon as possible. But on the other side, of course, we have to work on the other chapters as well. We have to simply travel around. We have to invite young people. We have to, I mean, do our homework. Actually, I do remember my visit. I believe that my former, Austrian ambassador to Slovenia. He was my former friend. I mean, as the Austrian ambassador to Serbia. Once we traveled to the southern part of Serbia, where we visited some official institutions, but mainly discussed the EU issues with the university, with students, and I was completely surprised actually. The fact, for instance, is that Serbia has more than 60% of trade with the European Union. European Union is far away the largest donor, and the opinion of young people is completely different. It's Russia, it's somebody else. So actually we need to work on this. I mean, step by step, but I'm extremely positive, really. Serbia is on the right way, and I believe that Serbia has a very serious approach towards entering the European Union. Although, I mean, you can find some kind of statements like, okay, we will harmonize the legislation, our acquis with the acquis communautaire. But on the other side, in a real practical life, probably will introduce something, implement something or not. I mean, but this is, I would call more or less a kind of sort of a folklore, which is not, completely excluded from some EU member states.
Mr. You just gave a great entry into my question for Mr. Milan Petrovic, because my next question was about the business in Serbia. Businessmen know what are the pros and cons, but are they as inviting to them as maybe some other arrangements that go around the EU? I mean, really straightforward. For Serbian business, does it pay better to be in the EU or to have, for example, a non-tariff agreement with Russia?
It's a good question, and it's a difference from politics, where 2 + 2 can be 3 or 5. In business, 2 + 2 is always 4. And the language of numbers is the language of the business. When we look at the numbers, it's obvious that in last year's EU 28 countries are actually the key trading partners of Serbia. The numbers which are showing that export of Serbian products to European Union, it's 8 billion euros, but even more important is that it's 60% of total value, and import of the goods is 12.5 billion, which is 65% of total value of import, is showing that absolutely European Union countries are the key partner of Serbia. Putting aside some other, the rest of the world, CEFTA is a trading agreement which is very important in the region. It's bringing 21% to Serbian export, and Russia only 6%. Talking about the imports, CEFTA it's only 4%, and Russia it's 11%. So European Union is 6 times bigger. European Union countries is 6 times bigger than Russia when we're talking about import, and even 10 times bigger when we're talking about import. So in that way, the facts as it is, but Serbia is still not the member of European Union. It's already showing that we are part of the region, and that Serbian products understand the needs and habits of European customers. And
So economically, there should be no doubt, basically.
Numbers are same for themselves.
Okay.
Maybe one sentence actually. A very small Slovenia invested in Serbia probably even more than big Russia, with all this extremely beneficial free trade agreement opportunities. Okay, it's clear to say that some Slovenian companies simply decided to invest in Serbia also due to these free trade agreements. But on the other side, actually, well, the figures are clear.
But as you already noticed Serbia is not going to be full member tomorrow. There is still some way to go ahead, and there could be some setbacks on the way. In your opinion, Mr. McAllister, what could be the biggest obstacle in Serbia's way to the EU? Where could it seriously stumble?
Well, as you just pointed out, Serbia is on its way towards the European Union. It won't be an easy road. It will take its time. We will make progress, and there will be setbacks. Brussels is ready to help, but Serbia has to deliver. My report, or the report which was carried in the European Parliament, shows where Serbia is doing well. But on the other hand, the Serbian politicians know, as we do in Brussels, there's a lot of things which are still to do. I would say the main elements are independence of the judiciary, human rights, freedom of expression, freedom of media, strengthening the rights of the political opposition, privatization of big state-owned companies, reform of the public administration, further economic reforms, and so on. The two major challenges will be, the one thing is Kosovo. Kosovo is a very difficult issue. I understand that. And 23 countries in the European Union have officially recognized Kosovo, 5 not. It's not about officially recognizing Kosovo, but we do expect that the relations between Serbia and Kosovo continue to normalize. There are a lot of political talks in Brussels. Baroness Ashton started these talks, Ms. Mogherini is continuing them, and we now need concrete implementation of what has been agreed. And we need both sides to cooperate closely together, Pristina and Belgrade. So that is the one thing, the normalization of relation to Kosovo. And that is the reason why there is still some reluctance in a few capitals in the European Union to open the chapters yet. And as you are all experts on Serbia, you know that the German government partly is bound by a resolution by the Deutsche Bundestag, which requires Chapter 35 to be opened at an early stage. It doesn't require that Chapter 35 has to be opened right away, but it has to be opened at an early stage. That, of course, is the question of Kosovo. And then finally, as Jadranka Joksimovic pointed out, the European Union expects Serbia to align its foreign and security policy with that of the European Union. Serbia is doing a lot of foreign affairs. We have great respect that this country is chairing the OSCE, and Serbia shows commitment to a lot of international missions, and astonishing high commitment for a country with a lot of internal homework still to do, that they stand in the great tradition of foreign policy in Belgrade. With regard to Russia, well, I'm going to be diplomatic tonight. There is still room for improvement. We understand that Serbia has a special relation, closer relation to Russia than other countries. And if you look at the 28 member states of the European Union, there are some which have closer ties to Russia, say Austria, Hungary, or Italy, and you have others who have less close ties. But we do expect Serbia to eventually fully align its foreign and security policy also on the question how to deal with Russia, which has violated European values in Ukraine, which is unacceptable for us all. So, but there's time. And Serbia will definitely, I'm very positive, will eventually align its foreign and security policy. Last comment. I have 3 countries on my mind most of the time. Germany, my home country, Serbia, as the rapporteur. I read Serbian media every day, luckily the English translation, so I understand what's going on. And the 3rd country is the United Kingdom. And as we should tell the Serbs, it's not only good to be a candidate country, but it's good to join the family, because you can take part in the decision-making in Europe, and you can join a political family of values. I would also like to bring exactly these arguments to our British friends. Don't leave the family, because when Britain leaves the European Union, it would be closely related to the European Union, but it would have nothing to say what's happening in Brussels. I'm looking forward to one of these days to welcoming the first Serbian commissioner in Brussels and the first Serbian members of the European Parliament.
So it is true what Politico says about you. You are on her Chancellor's Secret Service.
Well, for all of those of you who don't read Politico, Politico is a new political magazine in Brussels, and they had a story that I was the secret agent of Angela Merkel in Brussels. Do you know what? This story is so secret, even I didn't know that I was the secret agent of Angela Merkel. No, I'm just a humble servant of my Chancellor, and I'm a humble servant of the idea of the European Union.
Okay. Unfortunately, we will not have time to go through everything. So I will start to the first thing that you mentioned, and that is, of course, Kosovo. Mrs. Joksimovic, there is a dialogue Belgrade-Pristina going on. It has been a bit rocky for the past couple of weeks. There are some implementation issues, as also the last Birma report shows. But at the end of the day, something will have to happen. How far is Serbia willing to go?
Okay, it's not, I don't understand how far, if you can explain what means how far.
You will have to make some concessions regarding Kosovo.
We have made a huge number of concessions, and I will explain that.
No, but I'm just asking
No,
which
no, no.
direction that
Okay.
should go.
Okay, I understand.
Is it the new
Now
legal-
I understand. Okay, thank you. Yes, first of all, about the biggest obstacles. Of course, there are a lot of obstacles and there were a lot of obstacles for each candidate country in the past. I mean, Slovenia, I suppose you had your own. I mean, it was not easy process for anyone. Of course, we had that kind of special political precondition, which is tackled by the Chapter 35, which means implementation of Brussels Agreement. But also, David mentioned several things that we should reform in our society, and I agree, especially with public administration reform, independence of judiciary, etc., etc. Strengthening opposition, David, strengthen your own opposition if it's possible. Don't. I mean, it's not so. I mean, I understand the meaning, but there are elections, so who wins? They rule, I mean, till the next elections. So I'm not sure about your position, but everything else and freedom of media and everything else, it's okay. Of course, we understand and we very serious take all these suggestions and all these critics that very often come from the EU. And as you have noticed, our Prime Minister had several meetings last week with NGO organizations, with some independent bodies, especially with Ombudsman, and we really want to make improvement in this area, and certainly we will do that. The second thing, it's about Kosovo and Metohija issue, and of course it's not easy for us. We started very difficult political dialogue with Pristina. And we have signed 2 years ago Brussels Agreement, which is let's say, basic document for implementation and for making a good framework for normalization of relations between Belgrade and Pristina. It is not. It's not easy at all. You can imagine that, politically speaking, but also technically speaking, because all these technical agreements, it looks like a technical, but sometimes it's not only a technical one. It has implication, very important and very difficult political implications for us. But of course, we are completely devoted and dedicated to fulfill our obligation. But somehow, for last year and a half, it is some kind of perception that only Belgrade has to deliver something, and it's not true. I mean, political dialogue is not unilateral action; it's bilateral action. We also need Pristina to fulfill some of their obligations, especially when it comes to community of Serbian municipalities, which are the essential for us and for Serbian community in northern Kosovo. So we had elections in Pristina, also were organized elections. Then there was no government for more than 6 months in Pristina, so we were stuck in the whole process. And we as a candidate country, we were paying the price, and now we are also paying the price because no chapter has been opened. Even for 2 years, we were listening that we are the best candidate country, that we did a lot in our economic reforms, in other reforms, political reforms, etc., but no single chapter has been opened. And now we have, it's not, you mentioned some kind of lack of patience in Serbia. It's not a lack of patience. It's we are a government who has to.
Prime Minister said it. It wasn't me.
No. That's my explanation. Of course, you mentioned. Yeah, my explanation is not a lack of patience. It's specific need for this government to make a new communication strategy, to explain to people, because people, they don't understand what chapters mean, what opening chapters, action plans for 23 and 24, etc. Of course, we are trying to explain it, but somehow it looks like for the 2 years that if we open a chapter, then we will be so close to European Union that we could be member states tomorrow. Of course, it's not true. And as a minister for EU integration, to be completely honest to you, I don't speak about and I don't ask for opening chapters now. Now, my message is we will continue to work our job. We will continue to be devoted to EU integration process. We will do our best to reform our society. And if it is fulfilling criteria from this Copenhagen criteria, first of all, but also all others, political preconditions that exist, we are completely aware of that, then we will certainly open the chapters, and we hope really, and I think that till the end of this year, in the second part of the year, we should open maybe 23 and 24 as fundamentals, but maybe also 35 with 32, which is the financial control. We have prepared negotiation position. Of course, I don't want to be very technical in this speech now, but we have prepared ourselves for several chapters. But about the Brussels agreement, also I want to mention, and of course about the alignment in common foreign and security policy. The most important thing to understand is the perception of public opinion in Serbia about the Russia Federation. And I'm very open to you, because it's not only about statistics. If you see statistic figures, you will see that, as you mentioned before, European Union and Germany especially is the biggest bilateral donor in Serbia for more than 14 years. It's about 1.5 billion euros for this 12 or I'm not sure, I think it's about 12 years. And when you ask our people, who is the biggest donor in Serbia, bilateral donor, the answer will be Russia.
Or Japan.
Or Japan, but Japan, they are a big bilateral donor. But and about importing sanctions, and I'm very open to you. If you speak with our people, and our people has had bad experience with sanctions, with politics of sanctions during the 90s. And we remember what kind, the word sanction is so unpopular in Serbia. And it's not only about Russia, it's about any other state. I can give you an example. It was very bad reaction in public when it was some, I don't know, talks and discussions about Iran, And it's not a question of a really reason why you have imported the sanctions. It's something that is very unpopular, especially when it comes to Russia, because Russia was, the state that haven't imported sanctions during 90s to Serbia. So those kind of emotional and irrational sometimes and feelings, they are very important in politics, and it cannot be changed over the night. It needs time, and of course we have to respect that kind of feelings of our people.
That was actually my further on question, but we can do it now.
But certainly we know our obligations. I mean, I said that.
Course, for example, in this case, if you say it's, the perception of the people, they think that Russia is actually, investing more or the biggest donor. Do you maybe have any plans or any projects that would change that perception?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I will put his honor, it's not really working.
No, absolutely, because I'm a national IPA coordinator, but also I'm a coordinator for all development help in Serbia. And the last year, if I can measure my achievements, I can tell you that the focus of my activities was to make, to improve and to make communication strategy, and a lot of events with EU delegation in Serbia we have organized, and with Germany also. I can tell you that for 10 days or 5 days, we will have a minister for development from Germany, Mr. Miller. He will come in Serbia because we will make some events regarding the 15 years of German development help of Germany and donations from Germany. So certainly we do our best to give people facts. It's not about propaganda, pro or contra. It's about facts. People need to know facts, and then they can choose rationally. So I'm sure that in future we will certainly do to improve that. And of course, I have to mention that with the European Commission, we agreed to have a special action plan financed by EU about IPA funds, pre-accession funds, and bilateral help of member states. The European Commission will help us financially to promote this and to let's say to start to change the perception of people. And just one sentence is about that. Last year, the visibility of pre-accession funds in Serbia was about 85%. When you measure and you ask people, do you know what pre-accession funds are and how important they are, and how much money we got from the EU, etc. Today it's a 24, which means that we have worked very seriously in this issue, and of course we will continue to do that. And just a very good example, last year there were really catastrophic floods in Serbia, and you know that, Ambassador, you were very active ambassador. I still call you ambassador, but you were really active, and the biggest support and the biggest donation came from EU and from member states, and we could see immediately the increase of level of support to European Union when people understood that actually European Union helped us more than anybody else.
Okay, so that's about I cannot allow it. I'm really sorry, because we're going to talk about it also a little bit later on. But if we don't want our audience to fall asleep or to leave the room at 9:30, we have to go on. Mr. McAllister, very briefly. Slovenia joins EU without changing its stance on Kosovo or no?
That's a tricky question. And I would like to answer the question like this. The European Union can't expect Serbia to officially recognize Kosovo as long as 5 of our member states don't do this themselves. Spain, Romania, Slovakia, Greece, and Cyprus. But what we do expect is that the relations between Serbia and Kosovo normalize continuously, and in the end, as Commissioner Hahn underlines every time he's asked this question, there will have to be some kind of legally binding agreement. And that is very, very important, especially for the country where I come from. Belgrade knows this, Pristina knows this, and as Jadranka Joksimovic pointed out, these are very difficult negotiations for both sides. Serbia has to deliver, but Pristina also has to deliver.
Is it true that there are some talks, talks going on between Brussels and Belgrade, that the Belgrade, as a sign of goodwill, should enable Kosovo to become a full member of the UN?
Well, there are so many talks going on and so many
Is it true or not?
discussions. In the moment, we're trying to implement concrete results on the ground. It's about telecommunications,
Okay.
it's about telephone codes,
Okay,
it's about energy, it's about number plates, it's about the bridge Mitrovica, on and on and on. But the most important question at the moment is how do we organize the Association of Serbian Municipalities.
Okay.
I was in Northern Mitrovica a few weeks ago, spoke to the representatives of the Serbian minority from the Serbian side. These are the questions now,
Okay.
step by step. And you know, Jadranka knows much more than I do because she's very close to the Prime Minister, who's always sitting in Brussels for hours and hours talking to Mr. Mustafa and others.
But now I would rather talk about the good news about Kosovo. Mrs. Milenkovic, as you've already mentioned, the latest opinion polls show, I mean, nothing is good news about Serbia, show that there is 59% of Serbian citizens are in favor of entering the EU. At the same time, 2/3 of the people oppose recognizing Kosovo as a condition, even though they know it's a condition. But how to help those people to overcome this hardship of really letting go of something really, really important in order to have generally better lives?
It's not a condition. It's not a condition. That's the point. No, because if it were a condition, we wouldn't have accepted it, and it's as simple as that. Because we will not recognize Kosovo as an independent state, and it's full stop. I mean, there's nothing beyond that full stop. Regardless, if I may follow up to what David said, regardless of what the 5 member states who haven't recognized Kosovo in the future, it will not affect whether we recognize or not, because we will not, and that's it. Now, talking about the opinion poll, I think it's very important that opinion poll also shows that around 60% of the population in Serbia support the dialogue between Belgrade and Pristina. And I also think that it shows that people make a difference between the dialogue and the recognition, which is exactly the point of the whole exercise. The dialogue is about making the lives of the citizens, our citizens in Kosovo, better, and the recognition is a whole different issue. which the dialogue is not at all about. One of the first preconditions to start the dialogue back in 2012 was that it is not a status-related dialogue, but that this is a dialogue about, I just want to make the difference because we don't have to choose and to let go something to live better, but these processes can run in parallel. This is our firm belief.
No, because I not once mentioned the recognition. We all know how the situation with recognition is. It was just mentioned in the poll. That's why this.
No.
This,
the question in the
term
poll
came
was, would they accept recognition?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I wouldn't use the word recognition
Yeah.
at all. But I was more, when I was talking about, what are the possibilities concerning Kosovo, about the possible concessions in a way. I was more talking about this new suggestion from Mr. Bogovič. Is it already officially in the parliament? Of giving more autonomy to Kosovo within Serbia, or maybe the discussion about changing the constitution and the preamble and this kind of things. We are not
Well,
talking
actually,
about
yes. Well, actually, I will. It's a good opportunity to explain our position. First of all, of course, President of the Republic has been directly chosen, and he has rights to give initiatives, to give proposals, and everything else. That's a completely legitimate thing. But I want to say that the official position of our government is that we respect the fact that we have signed Brussels Agreement. And from Serbia, you will never see any demand for revision of the Brussels Agreement. We want, through the dialogue, political dialogue, and through the chapter 25, when it started, we want to solve the problems, to find solutions, to respect the spirit of the Brussels Agreement, which is very important when it comes to Serbia, to a community of Serbian municipalities. And now we are, as they mentioned, we have to make arrangement about telecommunication, about energy, and for us, essentially, and the most important thing is community of Serbian municipalities. So you mentioned the platform hasn't been in Parliament yet. No, it has been sent, as far as I know, to government to see that kind of proposal. Of course, we will discuss that. We will see what is the content and how we can maybe partly use some things, but within the framework of Brussels Agreement, because that's, we are a responsible state. We have signed something, and now the political dialogue is a form to try to fulfill this Brussels Agreement by its own provisions and by its own spirit.
What about the change of constitution?
But the change of constitution is not about preamble.
I know,
We need to change our constitution in next years because of the, for example, judiciary reform. That's one of the most important things and one of the most important reasons for changing the changing constitution. We haven't discussed about the preamble. That's, but that's of course that's also let's say question when it comes to changing constitution. The first question: do you do that? Should you do that because of the preamble? But the reasons are more than preamble. I mean, so
Okay. Okay. You want to answer?
Well, just one. The European External Action Service has presented a number of requirements, and you think you show it this way: if we want to see the first chapters opened this year, and here's somebody sitting who's in favor of doing that, it's very simple. Serbia needs to implement the easy ones in Kosovo and has to show progress on the more complicated ones. And I mean, there's been so many talks. Everyone knows now actually what you've got to do. But it's very, very complicated in detail. It's very, very complicated. and I am somebody who always tries to present both sides. Kosovo has to deliver on certain issues, Serbia too, and both sides have interests, and that's what all this negotiation process is about. But you know, I think the Brussels Agreement was a big success in European external and foreign policy, and I do hope that the European Union will continue its work to negotiate between the two countries.
You're all the time talking about possibly opening the chapters this year. It's 21st of May, so we're already half years beyond us. So we should know, can it really happen this year? In your opinion?
Well, predictions are always difficult, especially when it's about the future.
Okay, but we're not in January, that's my point.
Look, I don't know. For me personally, if you manage to open it in 2015, it would be good. Don't manage it, then it's not so nice, but the world won't go, you know, the sun won't go down forever. But it's just, after opening the official negotiations in January 2014, I mean, after 2 years, I think it's also a signal to acknowledge what the Serbian government has done. And once again, the social economic reforms the Serbian government has done, I am full of respect, and I think some EU member states could do well to try and copy what the Vučić government has done. For instance, our friends in Greece.
Okay, now I understand Mr. Vučić's statement from 2 days ago about
just the one very important sentence about visible progress. I think it's very important to mention that. You know, when it comes to visible progress between dialogue, Pristina, relations between Belgrade and Pristina, I have to tell you that last year, several ministers from Kosovo participated in different regional conferences in Belgrade. I mean, if it's not a visible progress, partly of course, it's very visible progress. We don't make any problems to Kosovo to participate in some regional conferences. Of course, under the agreement we have signed about regional representation, but that's a very important thing. We political dialogue on the highest level with prime ministers, with ministers of foreign affairs. So we are committed to dialogue, and we are trying the best solutions. It's not easy, and it takes time, and that's why David mentioned that the European Commission, the European Union, they want to see, let's say, fulfilling the easiest ways, and to see improvement in those which are very demanding and very difficult one. And still, I want to say that today in region, maybe unfortunately, maybe fortunately for Serbia, but maybe unfortunately for the region, I think that relations between Belgrade and Pristina are not so, let's say, difficult as some other things in region. So we made under the achievement of European common foreign and security policy, and that's the Brussels Agreement. So we achieved partly stable relations, or stable, let's say, surrounding for this political dialogue. Unfortunately, some other topics become more problematic.
So now we are running out of time. Let's jump to another lovely issue, which is money. Let's talk some money. And Mr. Bogovič, in your experience, you went through all the accession process and everything. 1.5 billion euros until 2020. In your experience, is that enough for Serbia, or should there be more, less? What do you think?
My opinion is that Serbia should get more money for this pre-accession assistance. The reason I said before, we are in 2015. Slovenia became European Union member in 2004, and also a lot of other countries. And the difference in the level of development is so much bigger. is if I know the numbers, the figures for environmental infrastructure, Serbia needs around 12 billion to build everything. So we need higher amount of money to make this process faster. And I think that through money, people can feel why it's good to be on this way. There are also other very important things that people can travel. This is very important. And also there is also money for young people to exchange them through Erasmus and such things. And I remember I was mayor in Krško and we had partnership city Bajina Bašta. And there was the director of Drinske Elektrarne, Bogovič. He said at the time, I'm too proud to ask for visa to visit my brother country, Slovenia. And this sentence means a lot. And I'm very glad that as when I was minister and Franc was also minister, here are people from safety agency. We cooperate with Serbia, paying agency for rural development. And I think that we must make a lot of such exchanges. Tonight I hear people from Serbia who cooperate with Slovenian development agencies to change good practice. And I think that the most important thing is that young people travel, that they can see what we speak about. It's not enough to speak about chapters and numbers. It's necessary to feel. And money, traveling, and as President of Managers said, business. Slovenia is also open economy. We export 60% of GDP, 23 billion always over export, 75 and 80% to European Union. And businessmen can feel this because there is no complication in trade. And these are these practical things which people must feel. So I suggest to work with people and don't forget rural development, don't forget people in countryside because all of them, they must feel what Europe is.
And in your estimation,
Number, figures.
yes, what would be realistic?
If Slovenia, as I said before, Slovenia paid 3 billion and we get 6 billion. We paid approximately 1% of GDP and we got 2% of GDP. Serbia is the country where is the level of development still lower. So that I think that they can get 3 times more than they will pay when they will be a full member. It means, I don't know, plus 700 million, 1 billion. This is the floor of Ms. Jadranka Joksimović to speak about numbers. But I think that Serbia needs this money if we want that the people in Serbia will live average European life. And that's necessary.
Don't ask me about numbers on that.
But do you agree with that?
But it's very important in German speak about money.
Of course. And usually they don't want to. They're just the ones carrying the
No,
bag.
they speak, they pay us.
Well, we're one of the we're one of the net donors to the European Union.
Of course.
Yes, and of course, if you want to have a simple political argument in Germany, you could say, oh, boo, that's so bad, we're the net donors to the European Union, and we want our money back. But that's a British approach.
Okay.
But the German approach is, yes, we know we are more wealthy than others in the European Union, but we also know it's in our interest that others eventually step up. And of course, we also know that a lot of the infrastructure which is being built with European money in the European Union is being built by German companies. Germany benefits probably most of all 28 member states of the single market. So it's fair for Brussels to give money to countries who want to join the European Union and who then join the European Union. It's well invested money. But
But is there 2.2 billion euros available for Serbia?
well, that's,
It's not.
I mean, that will depend what happens in the budget. And that's up to the Council and Parliament to decide that. Now, I'm not going to go into figures, but of course, money will be ready to be invested in Serbia as it is at the moment.
And Mrs.
Yes,
Joksimovic,
I will
realistically.
Yes, realistically, no, I will give you really precise figures. You know, from the first period when we start to use pre-accession funds from 2007 till 2013, we had about 1.3 billion for this 7 years period. Now we have signed a second financial period from 2014 to 2020, and it is predicted to give to Serbia about 1.5 billion for next 7 years. We are speaking about IPA funds, about pre-accession funds. Of course, there are bilateral donations, bilateral donors, our strategic development partners, as Germany, as some other countries. Sweden, for example, is also a very important partner for us in bilateral donations. So, of course, there are some multi-beneficiary funds, some regional funds, for example, Western Balkan Investment Framework, etc., but also macro-European strategies, you know, macro regions, Danube region and the Adriatic Ionian region. Today we have discussed with our Slovenian partners about some common projects and prioritization of some projects of mutual interest through these macro region strategies. So there are available money, but you, as I mentioned before at the beginning of this meeting, you have to be ready and prepared to use this money. And the good thing for Serbia is that from this year we will get accreditation for IPARD. So those IPA funds for agricultural and rural development, and it will be about 175 million for next 7 years. It sounds like not a big money, but for us and for our let's say state of claim in agriculture, it's a really important money, and we have to be ready to to use that and to inform our farmers and our people how to apply for this money. Without that, it will be some kind of lost money from the EU.
Unfortunately, we're really out of time, but there is one other question that needs to be asked in this sense with the money. Transparency issues. Is Serbian bureaucracy ready for this? Are they trained enough to guarantee that the money will be spent accordingly?
Yes, we had, of course, that's a really very demanding task for our administration. Not because of corruption, to be completely honest. It's about absorption capacities of our institution and our administrative capacities. So we got accreditation for this. That means decentralized management of IPA funds. And to be honest, in the first year we are not very good in this. And we need to strengthen our capacities. That's why we need experience from Slovenia, from Poland, or some countries that have Hungary that have used these pre-accession funds on proper way. So we are doing our best to improve capacities, but that will be part of technical assistance of our partners from the EU.
Well, we barely just scratched the surface of this complex topic that is Serbia's entry into the EU. But unfortunately, really we are out of time, and I think that it would be good to open the floor to the audience. I'm sure that there are relevant questions about this topic also out there. So if any of you has a question for a guest, a comment or something, okay. Mr. Shortes, please.
Welcome to everyone. I would like to congratulate Mr. Bogovič for this excellent event tonight, and also really pleasant say to all our guests in Slovenia, also I suppose in this weekend. So I would have a very short question. We haven't mentioned Croatia. I know this is a sensitive question, but we talk about Serbia and Kosovo, and we talk about the obstacle which could appear in this forthcoming period, but also in some on some plenary session we could have a feeling that also Croatia could present not the important but some of little obstacles of this process, as Mr. Mikhail said, not a negotiation, but a process. So, what is your opinion, Madam Ichinovic, about this? Thank you.
I'll take a few days.
Yeah, there is one.
My name is Jarosz. I would like to ask you the question which relates to the number which was mentioned so many times today, and that is 2020. What does it mean? What does it mean for Serbia and for other candidate countries? The European Union was made after the Second World War on the energy issues, coal and steel. And I will focus on the energy. The European Union, or excuse me, I will say the other way around. You have said today several times, we will open or we will not open, Serbia will open or European Union will open the chapter, this and this for the negotiation process. I think European Commission and the whole European Union is doing a lot of work on the ground with some semi-negotiation issues like energy community, if I go back to energy, which is based in Vienna and which through the forums, which are mostly held in Belgrade, do open a lot of questions which are part of the internal market questions and which are only going into the acquis communautaire issues. The target 2020, what my question will be, is put on the agenda of all these so-called sub-negotiations in the energy community on all the questions which are asked from the candidate countries. There is no transitional period mentioned, there is no other issues mentioned, but 2020 you have to fulfill all the issues which are related to the European directives. Now my question is this technical date or administrative date somehow realistic besides all other political questions, or it is not realistic? Because if countries like Serbia have to fulfill their obligations or their needs according to acquis communautaire or to the internal market issues by 2020, then it will be perhaps the end of the negotiation process progress for that deadline. So what does it mean 2020? And I will end with my asking you, don't give me the classical Brussels answer, which is Serbia has done an excellent progress, but they have a long way to go. That I would not like to hear.
So maybe it's still for now.
Yes, yes, of course, the question of bilateral relations between member states and candidate countries are always interesting. So I also think that Slovenia has its own experience during the negotiation process, maybe with the same country, I'm not sure. So I think that, you know, it's normal to expect that some member states will open some bilateral issues, open bilateral questions to candidate countries. We don't think that's a good practice, but it is obviously it is possible, and we can expect some kind of, not only from Croatia, to be completely honest, we have different demands from some other neighboring countries, which is okay, we are a candidate country, but if we want to have a good regional cooperation, which is one of the political preconditions for accession to EU, then I think that it's a good way to start to look for those things that we can cooperate about. That's why Berlin process was so important. That's why that kind of establishing that kind of framework where we can find, let's say, projects of mutual interest, you know, infrastructure, regional infrastructure, exchange of youth, etc., etc. It is important not only because of the statistics or some big numbers in future. It's good as some kind of relaxed atmosphere in region, and then in that let's say, relaxed atmosphere, we can start to solve our unsolved problems from the past. Just as Croatia has some questions for Serbia, Serbia, believe me, has open questions for Croatia. And that's something we should, and we will talk in future, and I can tell you that our Prime Minister and all our government really showed our commitment to regional cooperation after not so, let's say, encouraging statements from Croatia 3 or 4 months ago. We haven't overreacted. We haven't, answered on the equal way. Our Prime Minister went to inauguration of new President, Mrs. Bogovič. So we did a lot of things, and we expect her in Belgrade, I think, very soon. There was an invitation, we will see. So certainly we can expect obstacles, and we don't hide that from our people, but that's the negotiation process. We cannot change that. We just think that it won't be encouraging for the regional cooperation, and that's a very important part of the whole EU integration process. At about 2020, just one word. For Serbia, it's not 2020 to adopting the acquis. For us, it's 2018. To adopt the acquis. But of course, that's the first step. Implementation is always more difficult topic, and more difficult task. So when it comes to enlargement politics, I think, and policy of EU, I think that this 2020, it can mean everything, and also it can mean nothing. It depends, and it should depend by the merits of the candidate countries. And sometimes I'm not very happy when I see that regional approach is reaffirmed to say, okay, we don't want any state in region to be much better than the others, because then it is diminished the merit principle, the merit-based principle, to be merit by your own merits. So I hope that we can be, before 2020, maybe it won't be possible to achieve everything by 2020, but certainly some framework should be established.
Mr. McAllister, I suppose you would like to comment on the 2020?
3 short remarks. The first one is Franc, Bogovič, and Igor Šoltes both followed the debate on the Serbia report to the European Parliament. And I was the head of government in one of the German länder. I've been doing politics for 16 years, but I must say, politics can become very emotional when you fall in love with the Balkans. The most difficult discussions were not about Kosovo, which I would have expected, or foreign affairs. It was actually Croatian-Serbian questions. And I take the position bilateral questions should be solved on a bilateral level. Belgrade and Zagreb should talk to each other, visit each other, and try and solve the issues. A number of questions which were brought to the European Parliament by Croatian colleagues from all political groups. It's not one. I think they would have been much better placed on a bilateral level. Second question, energy union. You're right, the European Union was founded on coal and steel. And I believe the new project of Mr. Tusk and Mr. Juncker, backed by the Parliament, by the Commission, by the Council, is the energy union, is the biggest challenge, the biggest project for the Europeans since the founding of the European Union in the 50s. And the energy union is a project which will take years and even decades. But something is important. Right from the beginning, we should try and integrate the 6 countries from the Western Balkans. It doesn't make sense to build an energy union and treat Serbia, Bosnia, Kosovo, and other countries as if they weren't part of the project. So that's the second point I would like to make. And the third one is, look, I could name a year now as anyone else here when Serbia could join the European Union. And probably if we ask here and have a voting who's for 2018, yes, Wagner's hand will go up, who's for 2019, for 2020, 2021, 2022. But it's useless. Honestly, I can't name a year. And I won't name a year because I want to be taken seriously as a politician. But I'll tell you something. Serbia will join the European Union when Serbia is ready. It's as simple as that. And it's absolutely useless to say 2019, 2020, 2021. Nobody knows what's going to happen. But one thing is for sure. The sooner Serbia joins, the better it would be. But the sooner Serbia can join mainly depends on how Serbia will develop itself in the next few years. And that's the big responsibility, not only for the government, but for other institutions in the European Union.
So is there any other question? Otherwise, I think, oh, okay.
Thank you very much. Primoz Jurčeva, Vice President of Slovenian People's Party. First of all, congratulations to Franc Bogovič and all the team for organizing this very important event for Serbian integration. I come from the new wave of young people from politics, so my question will be from this field, of course, for Ms. Jadranka Joksimovic. What is the general opinion between youngs in Serbia for politics in general and for the integration of the European Union in Serbia? Do youngs support this? Because we all know this will be the people who will run the countries 20 years from now, and it's very important to have support between youngs in many different states. We know in Slovenia and in other countries it's a lot of questions raising, mostly from the youngs, Euroscepticism, question regarding the following years to come, and if they will be, of course, addressed correctly, I think the integration will be much simpler. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this very important question. And you know, my answer can be very formal and very optimistic, but it's not, if I want to be honest. Because, you know, on one hand, young people in Serbia are facing with really big economic and social problems, because we have very, unfortunately, very high unemployment rate, especially among the young population, among youth of Serbia. So when they speak about EU integration, part of them, it's about half-half. It's about, I don't have now specific numbers by latest polls, but it was half-half, you know. Half of them, of course, expect that European Union will bring them more job, more perspective, economic stability, but especially, let's say, better living standard and possibility for finding a job, because unemployment, as I mentioned, is a very big problem. But on the other hand, this kind of difficult international circumstances, reflecting on Serbia's EU way, etc., parallel with very unpopular economic measures, you know, with reduction of salaries in public sector, reduction of pensions, and public administration reform, etc. I mean, it's not easy always to explain them that everything that comes from EU, because perception might be that we do everything because of the EU, and that's why EU is not so good framework for their future life and for their future careers. So partly, young people, they are not in favor of EU, but of course that's that's young people, you know. We know that young people change themselves through the lives. They, in Serbia, they have very good opportunities for education, and we have, fortunately, we have very good, well-educated young people. So I'm sure that in the next years, by the first good consequences and outcomes of the reforms, they will start to support even more the European integration process. They are very active. They are very active when you speak about political life and about not only political but public debates. We have some kind of critical opinion coming from youth, and of course there are, but I think that all member states have the same problem. There are some threats by the extremist and radical groups, you know, right-oriented groups, but we are facing with that in the whole Europe. So we have, let's say, not a big problem with that, but we have that kind of problem, and certainly that's why we need a stronger and more visible European perspective. Maybe a short comment by Mr. Petrovic, please.
Thank you. I have also teenagers at home, and I have in-house opinions also. I would support what Mr. said. It's a big challenge for young population. Actually, they don't care, and the teenagers. I mean, usually it is the statement. You know, they have their own planet, etc. But when we are talking about European Union itself, more and more we are hearing from them it's blah blah. Because I remember I was 20 years old, 2000, and it was told to us just make these democratic changes, and the European Union will come to you, and with the assassination of Prime Minister, then world crisis hit also Serbia. Suddenly, 15 years later, we have zero on chapter 2. And young people are investing in themselves. They are very educated, they speak languages, and they think about two solutions. First one, okay, I'll find a job in Serbia and I'll stay. If not, I'm leaving. And it's 1 + 1 again. So in that way, we did also as an association a lot of things also with Minister for Youth. It's not only to get a job, you need to give them the right mentoring and to build them to become the leader, to become really quality people. So in all these segments we are doing a lot of jobs and things with young people, because we have, for example, university which is competing in business case competition worldwide, with Berkeley, with Harvard, with UCLA, etc., and they are winning. And last 3 years, Belgrade is the first and only Eastern European city which is hosting top universities from New Zealand, Singapore, etc., in Belgrade. And these guys are fantastic. What is their future? We couldn't find a job for 2 guys. They found a job, one in Adidas in Germany, another one in Mercedes in Germany. So, and this is the fact. So, in that way, what I want to say, I mean, this is and I would support mostly. It's not the membership itself, the whole process, the whole way up to the membership. It's even, I'll say, not more important, but equally important as the membership, because we have to implement the standard. We have to make more transparent, more predictive business environment. We have to increase the quality of the companies itself in order to be competitive in other markets to go out. And kids will understand these processes and then find a way to work in these more quality companies, to stay in more quality markets, and that's the way. When we are talking about the money, it's not enough money. We need more money. One example is that Bulgaria had in 6-7 years, 2007 to 13, 9.5 billion euros, 6.9 in structural and then 2.5 in agriculture segment. So 1.5 is not enough. And we need money as much as it's necessary to build better society, to build better infrastructure, to build better country. What is the total amount? I don't know. I think it's very big numbers. Only in environmental, for me, it's really one of the top challenges. It's what we know around 1.4 or something.
Still the 2030, yes, still
Yeah.
2030, it's
So-
11 billion.
So this is again an example of building the market, which should be more interesting for investors, both domestic and foreign investors. We had a case in one city where Scandinavian guys, they came to invest in jeans production and during the sanctions, which are not the most famous world. But these guys, in Basel, they built fantastic copying of all brands. So these guys came and they wanted to invest in jeans production, and they said, okay, we have to, update the machines. Okay, it's not a big issue, etc. Let us see the wasted water treatment. And the owner said, what is it? Water, it's water. And we know how much in jeans we have wasted water. And it's a long way, so I'm afraid that we'll need much more money. And by building the society in the future, we'll also keep the kids safe.
Yeah.
Just two short comments. First one, I would say so amongst the youngest in Serbia, it's clear Russia is the most popular. I would say probably even more than the case of older part of the population. But on the other side, and at the same time, it is very interesting when young people decided to leave the country and to find some better jobs somewhere abroad. Nobody goes to Russia. Nobody. Everybody wants to go to the European Union or perhaps to Norway or Switzerland or even to the United States, which is the least, which is probably really not the case of a very popular country. So the second remark regarding money, it's clear that Serbia will need much more money. But on the other side, I think the main problem I see at the moment is that Serbia will have to work much more seriously on harmonizing the policies, on building the institutions in the chapters where you can get and expect money. Agriculture, regional development, structural policy. Simply, I think it will be probably a kind of a catastrophe to start to negotiate about money at the moment. It is a great difference, it is a big and significant difference if you negotiate about overtaking the harmonized policies and at the same time about paying agencies which are completely in function and accredited already, compared to negotiating about the plans, ideas, and etc. This is the case of Slovenia. We decided for the first, way, and we got pretty good result. And I think this would be my strong and good advice to our dear Serbian friends.
Okay, now I think that we are all ready for some refreshments, and we can continue our discussions in more informal way a little bit later on. For now, I would just like to thank you all for coming. I would like to thank our distinguished guests for being here, the speakers, of course, and of course, the last words belong to the host. So, Mr. Bogovič, if you would be so kind, please.
Okay, the last words will be thank you. Thanks to all who was panelists in this roundtable. Thanks to you that you had these tough questions for us and that it was dynamic debate. It was excellent. Thanks to interpreters. Thanks to all of you who are here. That it was, I hope, successful roundtable. And allow me at the end that I say thank you also to Mr. Ambassador again, to his team, to Milica, and also thanks to team in my office here in Ljubljana, worked really hard on preparation of this Lena, Mateja, and Jure, and Gregor work in my office in Brussels. One applause for them. Still, in Slovenia, we don't only speak, we also eat and drink. And now it's time to taste Slovenian wine, taste Slovenian food, and also to continue this interesting debate. Thank you for coming, and all the best to Serbia, and I hope that we make a little step toward Europe.